Easter greetings to all of you, our friends, partners, board members, staff members of African Enterprise from across the partnership. This is 2022, which is a very special year for us in African Enterprise as we celebrate our 60th anniversary. In the book of Luke, chapter 24, verse 5, there is a very interesting text that we all know, and this is where in the conversation where the angel is asking the disciples, why do you seek the living from among the dead or among the dead? Of course, this follows the words or comes after the words of Mary Magdalene when she runs to the apostles and says to them, he is risen, he is risen. And so Peter, John, they take off, and that's where they encounter this angel, because indeed either they did not believe or they really wanted to be sure, but of course the circumstantial evidence shows they didn't believe it. And so this kind of rebuke from the angel, why are you seeking for the living among the dead? And but then I'm also reflecting on the common phrase that we use during Easter, where we say Christ is risen. And of course we know the traditional response is he is risen indeed. I use traditional in a very good sense because this is a church tradition that has been carried on from 400 BC, from 400 AD, where the church body began using it commonly during Easter, where they would say, Christ is risen, and the responded would answer, he is risen indeed. Why this kind of response? Of course, which is based on Mary's response, where Mary says, Christ is risen, or he is risen, to the disciples. And we respond, he is risen indeed. Of course, we see the disciples not saying indeed, but in their doubts running right into the grave and right where the body was to be very sure, just like Thomas, who will be saying, unless I touch his body, put my hands where the nails went through, I cannot believe that he is risen. But the response is, he is risen indeed. In other words, we are affirming, we are saying, yes, he is risen, and indeed, he is risen. Affirmation. And as we reflect on this Easter, that's the point, the background from which I'm reasoning with us or bringing this Easter greeting in these few minutes. In the book of Matthew 25, from verses 52, or rather from verse 52, but in the background it's verse 45, from noon, around that time in the afternoon, darkness came over the land. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cries out, Eli, Eli, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of those standing by, they say he's calling for Elijah. And one of them runs with a sponge with vinegar, which was meant to relieve pain. And the rest are saying, leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah will come to his rescue, kind of demeaning him. And after Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, the Bible says he gave up his spirit. In other parts of the Gospels, it says, he then says, my Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And cut, he gives up his life there and there, dying for us. But in verse 51, it says, at that moment, upon his death, the curtain of the temple was split in two, from top to bottom, which if you study how this cloth was it shows this was not going to be a human work, because to cut it from the top was something else, because it was a huge cloth, so to say. And then the earth shook, and the tombs, now listen to this, the tombs, the graves were opened up. The bodies of many holy people, that is saints who had died before, were raised back to life. They came out of the tomb. Very interesting and scaring humanly, seeing these dead bodies coming out of the tombs. But there is something important we need to note. And went into the city and appeared to many. Came out of the tombs after, that's the point, after Jesus' resurrection. So it's recorded right up at the point of his death, but it adds on after Jesus' resurrection. These old saints took off or walked into the streets, and it says appeared to many people. That is, people could tell that is so and so. I don't want to go into guesswork. Could be seeing that's Moses, that's Abraham, or that's Joseph, that's Daniel. They were able to relate with the history that they knew, and to see these are the saints that went before us or that had died. But the point is this, and that's where we began. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. You and me, we know the good news that in that Jesus' death, you and me, we died. In his resurrection, you and me rose up from the dead. And with these dead men of old walking into the streets, these saints being seen, it's like a pointer to what is going to happen, the resurrection of many at the end of the age where Jesus comes. But kind of, this is like not a rehearsal, but it's kind of a show of the conquest that Jesus has achieved. That at the point of his death, graves break open, tombs are being opened. At the point of his resurrection, that's what it says after Jesus' resurrection, they went into the holy city, kind of saying he's risen, and they are accompanying him, kind of like a typology or a fruit, a sign of what will happen eventually, where all that believe in Jesus are raised back to life. The good news, as we celebrate this Easter, in the midst of coming to the end of a pandemic, as we celebrate this Easter, could be in the background of difficulties or hard times, or even good news, like as we celebrate these 60 years of African enterprise. The good news is Christ is risen, remains the good news forever, and all of us affirm he is risen indeed. In his death, we die, and we died. In his resurrection, we rise up, and we shall be raised up when he comes. So as I bring this greeting to us, I want to encourage us, whichever point you are in as a friend of this ministry, a partner, a prayer partner, a supporter of African enterprise with your resources, with your human resource, financial resources, members of staff, board members across the globe. I want to say to us, the same good news applies to us. He is risen, and we affirm he is risen indeed. It's beyond any doubt that he indeed is risen. It remains the standard testimony of the church, and I want to encourage us as we go through life, through whichever situation you are going through, let's affirm it together that yes, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. And may that empower you, may that energize you, may that give you strength, may that give you courage to face any and every situation, because indeed, like the singer sang and said, because he lives, we can face tomorrow, you can face tomorrow, we can face eternity, because he died, and we can face any situation Whether in living or in dying, he remains Lord and God and gives us the victory. So may the Lord bless you during this Easter season, and may we go with a resounding message that yes, he has risen, and he is risen indeed, and we shall rise up with him. May the Lord bless you from all of us in the partnership of African Enterprise. God bless you.